Hello and welcome. I'm so excited for everybody today to get to meet one of our new authors. This is Harry Psaros, and he is launching his book today. It's From Struggle to Strength, and it is a phenomenal book. Yeah, go ahead and show it if you have it with you.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Just look for the boxing gloves. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the bright yellow boxing gloves. You can't miss it. So I'm Cori Wamsley. I'm the CEO of auroracorialis Publishing, and we have the pleasure of getting to work with authors like Harry who have a transformational story that they want to share so they can impact others and help them through their challenges a little bit easier. So I'm going to let Harry introduce himself. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So again, my name is Harry Psaros. My new book is From Struggle to Strength: The Father's Journey with Autism and the Power of Hope and Positivity. I live in McDonald, Pennsylvania, here in North Fayette Township in Pittsburgh. I grew up in the steel town of Weirton, West Virginia, about 30 miles away. I am on the board of directors for the Autism Caring Center. I'm one of the founding families of North Fayette PALS, which is a organization for special needs children. I'm president of the local Parks and Rec board, so all things social we kind of work on. Vice president of the Greek Orthodox Church in Weirton, West Virginia. But most importantly, I'm a husband and a father, and the proud father of two boys, Gus and Max. Gus of which is predominantly highlighted in the book when he was diagnosed 17 years ago on the autism spectrum, and it's really about our journey and our mindset. And this is a book not just about him; it's about 50% Gus's story, and then 50% there is no prescriptive how-to book when it comes to autism. You're not gonna cure it. Every child is different. You meet one person on the spectrum, you've met one person. My book is predominantly about mindset. It's about hope, positivity, resilience, and grit. Everything needed for optimal outcome in the journey of raising a child on the spectrum. And it's a little bit different. I think it's a unique take when it comes to a book on the spectrum. And there are very, very few books in the autism space. And I'm 20 years into this. Yeah. From a father, and I have no qualms being one of the most impactful. I want to be one of the loudest, and the goal of this book is to help others.
Yeah. Well, I love that there are people out there like you who are sharing these stories, because I know there are so many people sitting at home and going, I don't know what to do. I want to do something. I don't understand. I don't know anyone else who's been through this to ask. So we have books out there like this. So I love that. And I wanted to ask you what inspired you in particular to write your book.
Sure. So locally, I mentioned I was on the board for the Autism Caring Center, which is founded by the brilliant Kelly Kane here locally. Kelly has been a beacon of light in the area, but what she had in 2014, she was running the Autism Notebook magazine in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. So I was asked to moderate and or speak both when I went up to Green Tree here locally, and their speaker fell short. Like the one gentleman they had spoke for like 10 minutes, and they had a half hour allotted. And they go, can you do 20? And I just impromptu said, I have this. So as I got up speaking from a father's perspective, I saw mothers starting to line up, 3, 4, 5, and there were about a dozen. My first thought was, Psaros, did you offend someone? Like, did I throw in an expletive, or did I do something? Then I noticed all of them were emotional. And when I finished my speech, they came up to me and said, we need your help. We need your help. And they were desperate. They said, our husbands are not on board with the diagnosis.
Yeah.
And stagnation when it comes to autism means regression. That child's going into the abyss. It's the worst thing that could happen. Yeah. So what happened after that, I ended up making calls to all of these. I said, I'm not shy. I said, let me call. And it led to one dinner. It led to a few cups of coffee. I got hung up on a few times, some discussions. But what's interesting was I realized that the male mindset is a little different. Men want to fix things. They just intuitively do. You can't, quote unquote, fix autism. Right. So the stoicism that some of them had, it wasn't that they weren't involved. They were bogged down in trying to figure out how to fix this monumental problem. So I was able to open up discussions with their wives, and I'm like, hey, wait, something might be here. Like, this is an issue. Yeah. So I held off, and I'm glad I did at the time, not writing the book until about a year and a half ago or so when I spoke to the Autism Caring Center's Mother's Day conference. And as I was writing the speech out, half was my son's story, half were my points of pontification. And I bring a lot of my boxing martial arts background into it, the fighting perspective, the discipline, the positivity. And I thought, you know what? I'm looking at this. I go, this is my book. This is my book. And my book on steroids will be this speech. And I thought it was the right time. And I had a lot more life lessons at that point, too. So I'm really glad I waited. But make no doubt, I mean, this book is for parents with newly diagnosed children. Battle-tested parents can really get something from this book. But I wanted to slam home on those fathers that were being, because I was one of them initially, that were belligerent and not on board. And look, there's a reason this is about 150 pages. If you hand those guys War and Peace, they're not going to read it. This is a 2-day read, but it's meant to really hammer home. You need to get on board and help your wife and move forward and help your child.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned the length of the book. I think it's like the perfect length to be palatable. Like you can sit down and read it. It's very raw. It's very real. It's not written like some like, oh, I've been through this, so now I'm better than you sort of perspective. It is in the trenches, like real people. And I love that about this book. And one of the things you shared in there was going through, when Gus was young and what your wife was seeing and how she was telling you like, hey, I'm seeing this. What are your thoughts? Tell me a little bit about that time and about the time around diagnosis, because I know that was a huge focus for you.
This is a big focus because I wanted any father reading this that was resistant to go, well, I'm not preaching because I've been there. Right. I wanted them to understand this. But look, if you can't tell by now, I'm an over-caffeinated type A. I'm ultra positive. So the quote I give in the book is I could have fun at an insurance seminar. You know what I mean? I'm someone that goes into a room and I think I'm pretty energetic. And the thought of my child having something that would regress them socially for the rest of their life, it was just hard for me to fathom. And plus, I never had a kid. So this was my first child. And my wife was sensing things were definitely off. And my thought was, well, what if he's introverted? It happens, let it go. And I kept seeing autism as this weighty label. And what really broke the straw that broke the camel's back is we had a couple back-to-back birthday parties, and Gus was the outlier at both, in particular the second one. And my wife, who had been pushing me and trying to get our family to see the bigger picture, came home devastated. She had a great talk with Miss Josie, who's our preschool teacher, who's one of the heroes in the book. I mentioned her in the book, and she said, listen, I think you could be on the spectrum. Yeah. So, I in the beginning of this book is a big apology to my wife because I wanted it to be public. Now, I will say this. We went to the Cleveland Clinic, received the diagnosis, and I dealt with that palpable weight on the way home driving, but about midway through, with the support of my wife, my incredible father, who I dedicated the book to, who passed last year, I sat there and I thought, you know what, in a boxing analogy, okay, you've been backed up, getting my fighting stance, my tongue pseudo fighting stance. I've been backed up in the corner, now it's time to swing back. I'm going full Mike Tyson. So from that point on, I said, I'm supporting my wife. I'm going to do everything humanly possible to make this kid the best version of himself. I didn't say it was changing him. And I'm aware that you can't change autism. And you know what? God gave me my son. And I try to emphasize that in the book. My son was a gift from God. I am honored to be able to be his parent. My goal is to improve him on a daily basis, not change him. Right. And I tell you this right now, my son's the definition of grit. You have autism, you have Tourette's. He can't hear out his right ear. So there's a right ear advantage. I don't know if people know that. You can process quicker with your right. That's gone. And he has a lung issue called PCD, primary ciliary dyskinesia. If God came down today and said, hey, Psaros, take one away or add one, I'd give him his hearing. I would never change who he is as a person. Autism is who he is. And it's given him certain innate, beautiful superpowers that I don't possess or my wife doesn't possess. Yeah. So I would never change my son, And, but that's, like I said, that's that first story. I think it was important. I wanted dads to understand that I was in their spot. I was in denial. But accepting the diagnosis is a path to improvement. It's not a label, it's a path to improvement. I don't care what you call it, you know? So that was kind of a very key point in the beginning of the book.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing all of that, because I do think that that was a really important part of the book and an important connection piece for those who are, potentially looking for a book that can help them out. Um, and as I was thinking about that, as I was reading the book, I was thinking like, wow, like it is so hard for us to admit when we've been wrong or when we've been in a situation where we're being stubborn. Was it tough for you to share about that?
It was a catharsis, writing in general. But
Yeah.
look, the bigger man or the bigger human being can admit their mistakes. I made a mistake in the beginning.
Yeah.
And my thought was, how not better with this book to not only correct a mistake, publicly apologize, and not that my wife was demanding that. I want to make sure to emphasize that,
Right.
but I want to make sure to understand she was the hero in this in the beginning, not me at all. But to be able to flip this around and to break this machismo, this odd, opaque facade
Yeah.
that many fathers have. And you know what? If 50% of them, 20% of them read this book and I could break through, then I've really done my job. That was my thought process. Pay it forward, try to do everything I can to help them.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely making an impact on some families out there. Um, so I was wondering if you could share, because, everybody wants to know kind of what's in the book, aside from the story. What are some of the tips that you share for parents, especially dads, who have a child on the spectrum? And you mentioned about mindset. What are some things that you want to emphasize in the book?
There's a lot of things that I cover. I think they're practical. The one that I call the 2% rule, and everybody's read Atomic Habits by James Clear. I mean, it's almost like Atomic Habits on steroids. But when I say the 2% rule, I don't really care if you're mild, moderate, or severe on the spectrum. A win is a win. You need to wake up every single day and go, I'm going to make my child 2% better. That's just my rule. And in it could be toileting, it could be trying a new food that they've never tried because of sensitivities.
Mhm.
It could be activities of daily living. There's something you can do every day. And with those collective wins, that child starts to improve exponentially.
Yeah.
And again, it's about getting that child to be the best version of themselves, but you have to wake up every day with that mindset. So I talk about the 2% rule. The
Mhm.
other thing I talk about, and I am adamant about this, I don't do negative. Negativity is a toxin, and I like to eradicate it from my life. And I talk a lot about that mindset, about waking up and setting the tone of positivity in the house. And what I had to do, I thought when I was writing the book, they're going to look at me and go, "This guy's not a psychologist, or why should I listen to this psychobabble?"
Mhm.
So I highlight the Ted Lasso effect. Ted Lasso was profound in terms of the culture nationally. People really grabbed a hold of that show because it changed the way it changed leadership, it changed the way people were coaching, and it changed in particular the way people were parenting. So what I wanted to explain, legacy matters to me. If my kids walk out of this house and go, "My God, Dad, he yells all the time, he's negative," I'd be embarrassed.
Mhm.
So I want to set the tone of optimism and positivity. When you do that, not only will your family thrive, but in particular, that child that's struggling on a daily basis,
Mhm.
you're setting up a platform for them to succeed.
Yeah.
So I touch upon that mindset on top of the 2% rule. And I will say this, I'm not writing a book unless I talk about self care. I am adamant about eating clean, about exercising, and I'm going to be quite frank. I come from the David Goggins is by far one of my favorite authors
Mhm.
because he has a no bullshit, no excuse approach. Because I hear people all the time go, "Well, hey, I've been through the thick of it with my son
Yeah.
running around. You need to set the example in your house. If you're eating cleaner, your children eat cleaner. If the children on the spectrum are eating cleaner, neurologically they're functioning better. I mean, it's not that hard. You could put it together. Find 15, and you know what? And it doesn't even have to be always exercise. If you need to go meditate, if you need to read,
Mhm.
but if you aren't recharging your battery,
Yeah.
then you are not being the best version of yourself, and your child needs you.
Yeah.
So I touch upon that as well. And the last thing, if you'll humor me, the last point I have in the book is spreading the word. And I talk about the two major concepts in the book, sisu and philotimo in Greek. Philotimo is kind of my definition is because there's really no true definition. It's called the Greek secret.
Mm.
It's good for the sake of doing good, knowing that there's going to be a ripple effect in the universe, and you ask nothing in return. Nothing in return. My book is one of my ultimate acts of philotimo because I want people to pick this up and for it to help them. But I encourage everyone in this book, when you're done, I say this to my kids on a daily basis. You have one life to live. And in the game of life, you're either sitting on the bench or you're playing in the game. I tell my kids, be an MVP, play in the game and get involved and help others. God bless the people out there that want to sit on the couch and do nothing. That's not me. Make an impact. You have one life to live. And so I really want to encourage people when they're done, as you and I are speaking, thousands of children right now are getting diagnosed. 1 in 34, the latest statistics, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
So those people don't just need Harry Psaros. They need your help. If you're a battle-tested parent, sitting at home and not helping them, even if it's just reaching out to one person, make a difference. And that's a big emphasis in my book as well.
Yeah. I love all of that. I could totally get behind a conversation on all of that all day long. One of the things you touched on that I think is particularly important is, I mean, all of it is, but taking that time, especially as a parent of a child that has some sort of a disability, whether it's on the autism spectrum, whether it's a learning or behavioral issue or something, taking the time as a parent to sit down and pause and say, all right, I need to recharge my battery. Every one of us is worn out. I have 2 kids who are 9 and 11, and my older one struggles a little bit in school. And I know when she gets home in the evening, sometimes I'm just like, I cannot continue. I've had a full day of work. She goes straight upstairs and she will just listen to music and draw. That is her thing. And I have had to learn, as somebody who's very like high functioning, got to achieve everything, perfectionism, all that stuff. As becoming a parent was actually something that for me undid a lot of that. And you probably went through a similar experience where you had to step back and say, all right, I cannot push and push and push everybody until we're at the breaking point. Like, we have to give ourselves some grace. We have to pause and do some things to reboot and, be able to be our best selves. And there are even times when my kids will come in the office and, this is where I work from home, and they'll come in and just be like, I need this, and let's do this and this and this. And I'm like, you know what, if you can give me 10 minutes to just film a couple videos and relax and, maybe read a book in a little bit, I'm going to be a better parent. And I think that's something we all need to recognize, is like, we do need things to rebuild ourselves, and we need to be here as our best selves so we can parent at our best.
I agree 100%. Even if you're in a situation where you have a multitude of children, you have a lot of children and you're trying to juggle, but Michelle and I used to try to play a little bit of a tag team where I wouldn't be gone long, but if I went and hit the heavy bag for a half hour, if I went and ran, if I had karate class or whatever it might be, in her case, she loves to read, she loves yoga, but that little bit, just you're able to decompress. And in particular, a bad day. And I don't want to make it sound like every day's roses. I mean, I mentioned this in a previous podcast. If you look at the Tang Soo Do symbol, you have the Korean flag, and it looks like what people would call yin yang. We say yang. Mm-hmm. It's the duality of forces, both positive and negative. That's life, but that's really highlighted for the parent with a child on the spectrum. For every negative, you got to remember you're going to balance that out with a positive. And you go through a lot of ups and downs, but to do that, you need to be conditioned like you need your body conditioned if you ran a marathon. I got some of my medals here. You need to condition your body, and so I think it's so important. So I touch upon self-care. I have a few more books in me. It's such an obsessive topic with me that I think I might expand into a second book with it. It was hard for me to stay at one chapter with it, quite frankly.
Right.
So I think it's that important.
Yeah, I love that.
And I should mention rates of obesity are up to 50% right now with children on the spectrum.
I
Too
love
many parents are content with letting their kids sit there and play video games, just let them sit. Right, the sun's out right now. Get them out, get them moving. There's things you can do. So I think that's something I want to touch upon down the line in a second book.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for that. That's going to be amazing sharing about that.
Thank you.
And I know a lot of your story is your story, but we've also touched on the point that it's also Gus's story too. And I was wondering, how is Gus taking all of this? Like his story's out there. It's in a book now. What does he think?
So I wanted to, for lack of a better term, I wanted to get his permission before I did this.
Yeah.
And to his credit, you and I had this discussion. We were talking, and he looked at me and he says, I explained to him, you are what grit and fortitude looks like. And on top of that, I talk about Gus in the book because he's so positive.
Yeah.
He looked at me. Am I allowed obscenities? Just one obscenity?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I think I just dropped one. He looked at me, and this isn't meant to be cute, very introspectively. And I saw that you could see the buildup in his chest. He goes, Dad, long pause. I've been through a lot of shit. And that term, it's in the book. He's been through just myriad, countless hours of doctor's appointments, therapists being poked, prodded, tests, therapy when his peers were outside playing. And he says, I'm good with it, Dad. He goes, if it's going to help people, I'm good with it. And what I really hope comes from this more than anything is that people see that this kid is a rock star.
Yeah.
He's just been through so much. He's so positive, and there are traits about him where the world would be better if we could replicate him. And I touch upon that heavily. I mentioned the whole Ted Lasso section in my book, but this is a kid that is so infinitely positive, and he's almost incapable of talking badly of anyone. And I thought if you could get that characteristic and plug it into everybody else, the world would be a better place. So I would never change my son for anything. And, he's at college now. Has it been easy? No. It's been a reminder again that this is a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah.
But it's such an honor for me to be able to help him and support him through this journey. And I really, really hope, and I didn't think of it till after, I hope somebody reads this book and says, that kid's a rock star. I hope it opens an opportunity for him. It does, and he's working as hard as he can right now to maintain in college and get his degree. And in my heart's a heart, I know he's going to be a future success.
I love that. I love that he's on board, and I love that he's doing so well today. That's wonderful.
No, he knows it's going to help people. He's excited.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's awesome. So what do you think is the biggest takeaway from this book? We've talked about so many things today. What's the one thing you want to leave people with?
The one thing I truly want to leave people with is just to understand. I may be repeating myself, but I'm going to say it again. These children aren't broke. None of these children on the spectrum are broke. You and I were PCs. They are apples. They are the same individuals that we are. Their brains function differently. They're not a curse. They're a gift. God gave you these children. God gave me my son. It's an honor. It's not something that's reprehensible. Appreciate what has happened. God has chosen you, and he sees the fight that's in you. What I try to do in the book is ignite that flame a little bit more and let them understand that through what I call unwielding love. I use that a lot in the book. Maybe I should bookmark that or whatever, trademark it. But just know that you should be honored to be raising the child that you have. Just work your tail off on a daily basis to make them better. And that's my primary message. And that's kind of the whole point of this is I want to create that mindset where you're just waking up every day, you're smiling, you're positive, you're setting the tone, making that child the best they could be. They were given to you for a reason. Just know that.
I love that. I think that's a perfect way to wrap up. And I did want to mention today that we are doing a special for the launch. The ebook is available for just 99 cents on Amazon. So I will be dropping the link below. Make sure you get that today. It is April 4th. And the reason we picked this week is because, is it Autism Awareness Day? Is that what it
Correct.
was? It was April 2nd. I was actually traveling that day, so we couldn't do the launch that day, but we are doing it this week in honor of all the people all over the world who are on the spectrum and who are going through this journey. So we want to make sure that we're spreading the word about that. Harry, thank you so much for being on today and talking about your book and sharing all the wisdom that you have from being a parent in this situation. We really appreciate it. Can you let people know how they can connect with you?
Absolutely. And I would love to hear from everyone. I'm an open book. So you can find me on Facebook at Harry Psaros, Instagram, Harry Psaros, Twitter. I'm a social media influencer for the University of Pittsburgh Sports. So I'm at Pitt Guru, Pittguru, hail to Pitt. And I'm going to be launching, doing a lot more on TikTok. I want to start dropping nuggets of knowledge. So I'll be honest, I've never TikTok. I don't dance. So this would be something new for me. And then in the works, I'm also thinking about doing a podcast that blends not just autism, but a little bit about motivation, leadership, things like that. So you'll find, again, Harry Psaros. You'll find me Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. And I would love to hear from each and every person that reads the book.
Awesome. Yes, definitely. Make sure you reach out to Harry. Make sure you give a review on Amazon if you read the book too, because that helps other people who need to find the book. And hot tip for you for TikTok. I actually just got a TikTok channel myself, channel page. I don't know what it's called. My kids said that if I twerk on there, I'll get more likes and follows. So
I don't think you want me twerking. I'm going to scare a lot of people, so I'm going to hold off on that. But,
yeah, well, I told them I'd think about it. So
right, right.
I should pass that along. Again, thank you so much for being on today. And everybody make sure you get a copy of From Struggle to Strength. Again, it's 99 cents on Amazon today only. Thank you for watching.
Great. Thank you.